Hello everyone and welcome. In this channel, we will explore fascinating and profound stories about life, people, and the lessons we learn along the way. Today, I bring you the story of the poor man, the rich man, and the walker, an inspiring story about humility, generosity, and the transforming power of the community. Join me on this journey full of teachings and discoveries, but first subscribe to the channel. The sun was at its highest point when the walker reached the top of the hill. From there, he could see a small town stretching along the valley. The houses were modest, made of adobe and wood, with red roof ceilings that shone under the light of noon. In the distance, a bell tower stood out among the buildings, pointing to the heart of the town. The walker, a man of serene appearance and penetrating gaze, had been traveling dusty roads for days, without a fixed destination. He wore simple clothes and a wide-winged hat that protected him from the sun. His boots were worn, showing the footprints of many kilometers walked. Despite the fatigue, his steps were firm and his spirit unbreakable. Upon entering the town, he was received by a mixture of curious and cautious gazes. The villagers, occupied in their daily chores, observed him with interest. It was not common for outsiders to visit his small corner of the world. The walker decided to go to the main square, where he hoped to find a place to rest and perhaps some food. In the square, he found a wooden bench in the shade of an old oak. He sat down and watched people coming and going. A group of children played ball, their laughter resounding in the air. A few sellers offered their products in small stalls, fresh fruits, vegetables, local crafts. The atmosphere was quiet, almost bucolic. It was not long before a man approached the walker. He was medium in height, with thin hair and wrinkles marked on his face. His clothes, although clean, showed signs of wear and tear. "Good morning, traveler," the man greeted with a kind smile. "It is not common to see new faces around here. Where are you from?" The walker looked up and smiled back. "Good morning. I come from far away. I do not have a fixed destination. I just follow the path that leads me." "I understand. My name is Tomas." The man introduced himself, holding out his hand. "If you are looking for a place to rest and eat something, you are lucky. My home is humble, but there is always an extra dish for a traveler." The walker shook Tomas' hand, feeling the warmth of his embrace. "I appreciate your generosity, Tomas. My name is Lucas." Tomas guided Lucas down the streets of the town until he reached a small house on the outskirts. The home was simple but cozy, surrounded by a small garden where some vegetables and wildflowers grew. Upon entering, Lucas noticed the austerity of the place. The furniture was scarce and worn out, but everything was tidy and clean. "Please, sit down," said Tomas, indicating a wooden table with 2 chairs. "I don't have much, but I can offer you a stew that I prepared this morning." While Tomas served the stew, Lucas observed the interior of the house. There were few belongings, but each object seemed to have a place and a purpose. The simplicity of the home reflected the life of its owner. "Tell me, Tomas," said Lucas as he took a spoonful of the hot stew, "how is life in this town?" Tomas sighed. His gaze became reflective. "It is not easy, Lucas. Here most of us are humble people. We work hard to earn the bread of every day. But despite the difficulties, we support each other. It is what keeps us together." Lucas agreed, recognizing the truth in the words of Tomas. While enjoying the stew, he could not help but feel a deep admiration for the man who, despite his own needs, had opened his home to a stranger. At the end of the meal, Tomas got up and began to pick up the dishes. "Let me help you," Lucas offered, standing up. "It is not necessary. You are my guest," Tomas replied with a smile. "Also, I am used to doing it alone." Lucas insisted, and together they cleaned the dishes in a comfortable silence. Then, Tomas invited him to sit on the small front porch. "Tell me, Lucas," said Tomas as they watched the sun begin to set on the horizon, "what brings you to these paths? What are you looking for in your journey?" Lucas meditated the question for a moment before answering. "I seek to understand, Tomas. I have seen many things in my life. I have met many people. Each town, each home, each individual has a unique story. I want to learn from those stories, understand the different ways of life, perhaps find my own way in the process." Tomas agreed, understanding the depth of Lucas's words. You have a noble spirit. Lucas, I hope you find what you're looking for on your journey. As the night fell, Tomas offered Lucas to stay at his home. Grateful, Lucas accepted. As he settled down to sleep, he thought about Tomas's generosity and the stories that were yet to be discovered on his way. The journey of the walker continued, and with it, the lessons of life were revealed step by step. The first ray of sun was filtered through the window, waking Lucas from his dream. When he opened his eyes, he found himself in the humble but cozy room that Tomas had offered him. Grateful for the hospitality, Lucas got up and went out to the small front porch, where he found Tomas already awake, busy in his garden. Good morning. Tomas greeted Lucas with a smile. Good morning, Lucas, Tomas replied, raising his eyes from plants. I hope you slept well. Yes, very well. Thank you for your hospitality. Tomas sat down and washed his hands in the front before inviting Lucas to sit at a small table on the porch. Before starting the day, I have the habit of having a coffee and thinking a little, said Tomas while serving 2 cups of steaming coffee. Would you like to join me? Lucas agreed, and they sat together to enjoy the coffee while the people began to wake up. The birds were singing, and the fresh air of the morning filled their lungs. Tell me more about your life, Tomas, Lucas asked. Yesterday you mentioned that it is not easy, but I would like to know more details. Tomas took a sip of coffee and looked at Lucas with a thoughtful expression. I was born and raised in this town. My parents were peasants, and from an early age, I learned the value of hard work. When they died, I inherited this small house and the land you see here. It is not much, but I have always strived to maintain it. He took a break. His gaze was lost on the horizon for a moment before continuing. I worked in different trades to earn a living, as a farmer, carpenter, and even an assistant in the town store. But it was never enough to accumulate wealth. Here, many like me fight day by day to meet our basic needs. Lucas listened intently, feeling a growing admiration for Tomas's resilience. And despite everything, you always find a way to help others, Lucas commented. It is not something that is seen often. Tomas smiled humbly. I believe that true wealth is not in what we possess, but in what we give. In this town, we support each other. When someone needs help, we do our best to provide it. It is the only way to get ahead. After breakfast, Tomas invited Lucas to accompany him in his daily tasks. Together, they worked in the garden, taking care of the vegetables and repairing a fence that needed maintenance. Lucas observed how Tomas moved with skill and care, dedicating his effort to each small task. This garden is an important part of my life, Tomas explained while planting new seeds. What I grow here not only feeds me, but also others in the town. When I have a good harvest, I share what I can with those who need it most. Later, Lucas and Tomas went to the town market. Along the way, Tomas greeted every person he met, always with a smile and a kind word. In the market, he exchanged some of his vegetables for other necessary products for his home. Lucas observed how Tomas treated everyone with respect and cordiality, earning the esteem of his neighbors. Tomas, have you ever thought of leaving this place and going to look for a different life elsewhere? Lucas asked as they returned home. Tomas thought for a moment before answering. I have thought about it, but this is my home. Here are my roots, my memories, and the people I care about. I don't have big ambitions. I just want to live a simple life and do the best I can with what I have. If I can make a difference in the lives of others, that is enough for me. Lucas agreed, understanding the depth of Tomas's words. As the day came to an end, he felt more and more inspired by the humility and generosity of the man who had welcomed him. That night, while they were preparing for dinner, Tomas shared more stories about his life and the people of the town. He spoke of difficult times, such as droughts and bad harvests, and of moments of joy, such as community parties and celebrations. Each story reflected the strength of spirit and solidarity that kept the people united. Before going to bed, Lucas sat down for a moment alone, reflecting on everything he had learned. Tomas's life, with its challenges and simplicity, had taught him a valuable lesson about the true wealth and value of the community. The walker, although always on the move, had found in Tomas an example of life that he would carry with him on his journey. As the moon shone in the sky, Lucas felt grateful for having found Tomas on his way. He knew that the journey would continue, but now he had a deeper understanding of what it meant to live with humility and generosity. The sun shone intensely the next day when Lucas said goodbye to Tomas, thanking him once again for his generosity. Decided to continue learning about life in the town, Lucas headed towards the most opulent part of the place, where the houses were larger and more ostentatious. He had heard from Tomas about a rich man who lived there, a man whose life strongly contrasted with the humility of Tomas. The residence of the rich man, Don Alfonso, was an imposing mansion surrounded by high walls and forged iron gates. As he approached, Lucas noticed the meticulous details of the garden, with exotic flowers and decorative fountains that splashed the landscape. The contrast with Tomas's house was evident. Lucas rang the doorbell and waited. It wasn't long before a butler, dressed in an impeccable uniform, opened the door. "Good morning, sir. How can I help you?" The butler asked in a polite but distant voice. "Good morning. My name is Lucas. I'm a traveler. I would like to meet Mr. Alfonso, if possible." The butler looked at him curiously, but he sat down and led him inside the mansion. Lucas was impressed by the luxury that surrounded him. Glass candelabras, Persian carpets, and works of art adorned every corner. Subtly, the butler took him to a large room where Don Alfonso was sitting on a leather chair, reviewing some documents. He was a middle-aged man, with dark hair carefully combed and an expression of confidence. "Welcome, Lucas. What brings you to my home?" Alfonso asked with a smile that did not reach his eyes. "Thank you for receiving me, Mr. Alfonso. I am a traveler who seeks to know different ways of life and learn from every place I visit. I would like to know more about you and your life here." Alfonso agreed and told Lucas to sit in a chair in front of him. "My life is not as interesting as you might think, but I will be delighted to share it with you. I was born into a wealthy family. I inherited this house and my father's business. I have worked hard to maintain and expand our properties and companies." "It must be a great responsibility," Lucas commented. "It is, but it also brings many rewards. Here in the town, I have a position of respect and power. I can influence important decisions and make sure that things are done my way." While they were talking, a group of servants entered with a tray of food. Finely prepared dishes were placed on a nearby table, and Alfonso invited Lucas to join him for an opulent lunch. The food was a feast of flavors and textures, with ingredients that Lucas had not seen in a long time. During the banquet, Alfonso spoke enthusiastically about his achievements and properties. He proudly described his business and explained how his wealth allowed him to live a luxurious and comfortable life. Lucas listened carefully, noticing the difference in the way Alfonso saw the world compared to Tomas. "And tell me, Lucas, what do you think of what you have seen so far?" he asked Alfonso, drinking a sip of wine. "It's impressive, no doubt. However, I wonder what the relationship is like between the different members of the community. Yesterday, I met a man named Tomas, who lives very differently from you." Alfonso smiled with some superiority. "Ah, Tomas. Yes, I know him. He is a good man, hardworking, but his vision of life is limited. He is satisfied with little and lives modestly. Instead, I believe in taking full advantage of the opportunities and enjoying the rewards that come with success." After lunch, Alfonso showed Lucas the rest of his property, including the stables with horses, pure blood, and a winery full of the best wines. The abundance and luxury were overwhelming. Before saying goodbye, Lucas dared to ask one last question. "Mr. Alfonso, have you ever thought about how you could use your influence and resources to help others in the village?" Alfonso frowned slightly, but then smiled. "I help in my own way, Lucas. I employ many people, contribute with donations to certain causes, and maintain order in the community. Everyone has their role in society, and I fulfill mine." Lucas agreed, thanking Alfonso for his time and hospitality. When leaving the mansion and walking back to the village, he could not help but reflect on the two lives so different that he had known. On the one hand, the humility and generosity of Tomas, and on the other, the luxury and security of Alfonso. Each one lived according to their own beliefs and values, but the contrast was undeniable. That night, while resting under a starry sky, Lucas thought about the lessons learned. He knew that true wealth was not measured only in material possessions, but also in the ability to connect with others and share what you have. The path of the walker continued, and with it, the search for a deeper understanding of life and the people he found on his journey. Lucas woke up early the next day, feeling a mixture of curiosity and reflection about the experiences of the previous days. While collecting his few belongings and preparing to continue his journey, he decided to spend one last day in the village to meditate on what he had learned. The life of the poor man and that of the rich man had left a lasting impression on him. He decided to return to the main square, the heart of the town, where it all began. The place was full of morning activity, vendors preparing their stalls, children running and playing, and villagers starting their daily chores. Lucas found a bench in the shade of a large tree and sat down, observing the bustle with a thoughtful mind. As the sun rose in the sky, Lucas reflected on the lives of Tomas and Alfonso. Each one represented an extreme of the social spectrum of the town. On the one hand, Tomas lived a simple life, focused on generosity and community support, while Alfonso enjoyed the luxuries and comforts that his wealth provided him, keeping a certain emotional distance from others. Lucas realized that both men, in their own way, were prisoners of their own circumstances. Tomas, with his humility, found satisfaction in helping others, but often lacked sufficient resources to improve his own life. Alfonso, on the other hand, possessed everything money could buy, but his isolation and pride prevented him from truly connecting with others and finding a deeper satisfaction. While Lucas was still immersed in his thoughts, he noticed a commotion near the opposite end of the square. An elegant carriage had arrived, and a well-dressed man descended from it, accompanied by a small group of people. Lucas observed with interest as the group headed towards Alfonso's house. Intrigued, Lucas decided to follow them discreetly. Upon arriving at Alfonso's mansion, he realized that the well-dressed man was an old friend of Alfonso, an entrepreneur from a nearby city, who had come to discuss important matters. Lucas kept a safe distance, listening to the conversation that was taking place in the garden. "Alfonso, I have heard rumors about the economic situation in our country," said the friend with a worried voice. "The recession is affecting everyone, even the richest. We must be prepared for difficult times." Alfonso, for the first time since Lucas had met him, seemed restless. The news had taken him by surprise. "We suggest we do," he asked Alfonso, trying to keep his composure. "We need to diversify our investments and, more importantly, strengthen our relations with the community. In times of crisis, solidarity and mutual support are essential." That night, Alfonso could not sleep. The words of his friend resonated in his mind, mixing with the images of the humble but full life of Tomas. The next day, he made a decision that surprised everyone. Alfonso went to the town market, something he rarely did. The villagers looked at him with curiosity and distrust as he walked between the stalls. Finally, he found Tomas, who was helping a neighbor repair an old table. "Tomas, I need to talk to you," said Alfonso, with a seriousness that had not been seen before on his face. Tomas looked up, surprised by the presence of the rich man. "Of course, Alfonso. How can I help you?" "I have been thinking a lot about what it means to live in community," Alfonso began. "I have realized that, although I have material wealth, I have been living an empty and isolated life. I want to learn from you. Tomas, I want to know how I can use my resources to help others and contribute to the well-being of the people." Tomas smiled, understanding the sincerity in Alfonso's words. "There are always ways to help, Alfonso. You can start by supporting community projects, making sure that no one in the town goes hungry, and promoting education and health. Your influence can make a big difference." From that day on, Alfonso began to change. He began to finance the construction of a new school and a health center. He organized community events where he shared his abundance with the villagers and promoted the creation of cooperatives that benefited everyone. Slowly, people's initial distrust turned into gratitude and respect. Tomas, for his part, remained the same humble man, but now he worked side by side with Alfonso, helping him understand the real needs of the people and making sure that help reached those who most needed it. The town began to prosper in a way that had not been seen in years. The collaboration between Tomas and Alfonso became a symbol of what can be achieved when humility and generosity come together with resources and influence. The differences between rich and poor became less marked, and a feeling of solidarity began to permeate the community. When it was time to continue his journey, Lucas said goodbye to Tomas and Alfonso, grateful for the lessons learned. The walker knew that he had witnessed an extraordinary transformation and carried with him a hope that more people could learn to see beyond their differences and work together for a common good. While Lucas was moving away from the town, he felt a renewed confidence in humanity. He knew that his journey would take him to many other places, but the stories of Tomas and Alfonso would remain with him, always reminding him of the power of humility, generosity, and the ability to change. The dusty road stretched out in front of Lucas as the sun began to rise on the horizon, painting the sky with golden and pink tones. The morning breeze was cool and vigorous, and Lucas felt a renewed energy as he moved away from the town he had come to know so well. Although his heart was full of gratitude for the experiences he had lived, he knew that his journey had to continue. As he advanced, Lucas entered an increasingly green and exuberant landscape. The fields of cultivation gave way to wavy hills and lush forests. The melodies of the birds and the whisper of the leaves in the trees provided a natural serenity, creating an atmosphere of peace and reflection. After several hours of walking, Lucas arrived at a clearing in the forest, where a river streamed gently through the valley. He decided to take a break and sat on the riverbank, letting the sound of the running water envelop him. As he rested, his thoughts flew back to the town and to the lessons learned from Tomas and Alfonso. Lucas realized that change was a constant in life. He had seen how Tomas and Alfonso, two men from very different worlds, had found a common ground to work together and transform their community. This change had not only benefited them, but also everyone in the town. Lucas's journey was not just about traveling physical distances, but also about understanding the depths of the human soul and the ability of people to grow and adapt. He remembered Tomas's words about true wealth not being in what one possesses, but in what one gives. And he also remembered Alfonso's transformation, who had learned to use his influence for the common good. After his rest, Lucas continued his journey and arrived at a new town at dusk. This town, although similar in size to the previous one, had a different energy. There was a vibrant activity in the streets, and the faces of the villagers reflected a mixture of hope and determination. He decided to stay in a small local inn. The inn, a kind middle-aged woman named Elena, warmly welcomed him and offered him a room and a simple but delicious dinner. "Thank you for your hospitality, Elena," said Lucas as he enjoyed a hot soup. "This town seems full of life and energy. What is your secret?" Elena smiled, her eyes shining with pride. "A few years ago, we were going through difficult times, but everything changed when we decided to work together as a community. Now, we all have an important role in the well-being of the town. We help our neighbors, share our resources, and make sure that no one is left behind." Lucas spent the following days exploring the town and meeting its inhabitants. He visited the local school, where children learned not only academic subjects, but also the importance of cooperation and empathy. He observed how farmers helped each other during the harvest and how artisans shared their knowledge and skills with the youngest. One afternoon, Lucas met a group of elderly sitting on a bench, enjoying the sun. He joined them and heard their stories about how the town had overcome adversities through unity and mutual support. "The key is in the connection," said one of the elders named Joaquin. "When we understand that we are all interconnected, we realize that the well-being of one depends on the well-being of all." Lucas's time in a new town came to an end, and once again, he prepared to continue on his path. When he said goodbye to Elena and the friends he had made, he felt a deep gratitude for the lessons learned. Each town, each meeting, enriched his understanding of the world and of himself. As he walked towards dawn, Lucas reflected on the power of the community and the importance of collaboration and mutual support. He knew that his journey was far from over, but he carried with him a message of hope and change. With each step, Lucas approached new horizons, carrying with him the stories and lessons of those he had met. The sun rose slowly, illuminating the path ahead and symbolizing a new beginning, not only for him, but for all the people who touched his life. The walker continued his journey, knowing that in each town and each home, there were stories waiting to be discovered and lessons to learn. And so, with a heart full of gratitude and an open mind to new experiences, Lucas was moving toward a new dawn, ready to embrace the next chapter of his journey.